Hello. Oh, hey.
Check, check. Hello, hello. Is mic check? Can anybody hear me out there? Oh, lovely. Brilliant. Well,
Hey.
well, thank you ever so much, and a very good afternoon to you, Shindig. Hello there. Hi. Thank you for coming. This is what I call Fluffy Speakeasy. I'm Fluffy, and I invite incredible human beings, people that really make a difference, onto the stage, and we're going to have a little chat. And this is the first one of the weekend, and we're starting with an absolute living legend, the mighty Phoenix. He is... yeah, absolutely. He deserves more than a clap. He deserves absolute admiration, gratitude and respect. He is a frontline activist for over 35, almost 40 years of frontline activism, right back to before the Criminal Justice Act, long before Extinction Rebellion. This man has been sticking his neck out, risking his liberty and using non-violent direct action to make positive change. So actually, can we just make him feel really welcome? Because I'm really honoured to have the mighty Phoenix.
Thank you, Fluffy. That's beautiful.
It's all true.
That big up. Well, we've been at it for a lot of years, many decades, many generations of people standing up for our rights. I suppose mentioned Criminal Justice Act. The partner and mum of my daughter used to run the Freedom Network, which is a campaign against the Criminal Justice Act when they try to bring in all these laws to stop people dancing to repetitive beats. And I told a couple of youngsters when they came in the Resistance exhibition the other year that the government made music illegal, dancing outdoors to repetitive beats, and they went, "How can anyone make music illegal?" I said, "Yeah, they did. A succession of repetitive beats played outdoors after dark, and then they changed it to during the day as well."
The most ridiculous thing. So some of this stuff is probably a little bit generational, because of course I can't actually see who we've got in the audience, but it does look like I'm talking mostly to people our age. So that's great. So a lot of this. So do we know what the Criminal Justice Act was? Do we know what happened there? Well, the lead up to that was really interesting, because there was a growing number of resistance movements, from the New Age travellers, from the free festivals to the rave scene, having massive technovals, free parties, and the Hunt Sabs and the road protest movement. Absolutely.
Yeah, brought a lot of people together from many different movements, many different groups. The Free Festival movement turning into the kind of acid house revolution of, parties indoors. All of these kind of groups were brought together, taking action before the Criminal Justice Act and then kind of brought together by the Criminal Justice Act to campaign back.
That was the amazing thing. This law that they tried to bring in against all of these different marginalised groups that were very separate at the time. The squatters didn't really do much with the Hunt Sabs. The Hunt Sabs were doing their thing. The road protesters are doing their thing. The ravers were very much doing their thing. Then our government felt this is all getting out of hand. We are going to do what we can to stop all of these things. And what it actually did, it brought us all together. It was an incredibly powerful time, the mid-90s.
I mean, there was a big, there's waves that go into this, and we cover a bit with the Resistance exhibition, but, the squatters movement actually started after, it's a longer history than this, but after World War II, lots of ex-servicemen came back and they were told they would get homes fit for heroes, and so many houses had been bombed out and destroyed, they started occupying army camps and, even hotels and other spaces after war to house themselves and their families. And that squatters movement grew all through the 50s, 60s, 70s, got very, very big into the 80s and the 90s. And many squats were bases for lots of people to, get together and also, as well as just housing themselves, do political things and stuff like that. And as Fluffy's saying, there was also the Free Festival movement. I think one of the things to start with was there's many strands to it, but the Windsor Free Festival happened, and I think it happened the first year. The second year, the police came in and tried to stop it. Maybe the third year, and they beat people up. And then Wally Hope and others said, right, if they're going to stop us here at the Windsor Free Festival, let's go to Stonehenge. and that became the beginning of the Stonehenge People's Free Festival, the Peace Convoy, and a whole load of people who work, travel around the country to, all of these different free festivals, which are the grandmother of these festivals now, you could say.
And it was, and the free festival movement was just a collection of people, just as ourselves, who wanted to find better ways of doing things and had found that you can buy a bus, a truck, move in with your family and own it, and have your own home, be nomadic and live an alternative lifestyle that actually worked. So the persecution against the travellers was because it was a working alternative. It was a successful working alternative.
That's a story that Andy from Festival Eye, famous magazine for many years on a festival, tells a story that, I think it was Norman Tebbit or one of them Muppets who basically said, get on your bike and go and get a job. Well, he said, our culture, we got on our bikes, we got in our cars, we got in our vans, we got in our trucks, we got in our buses, and we created this whole free festival culture where people could earn money through, selling cakes to mechanics, to jewellery, to whatever it was. People actually became independent of the state. They didn't need to sign on, and they travel around all these different places, and, there was like 12, 15, 20 main festivals, lots of smaller ones. And then after so many years, the government really didn't like it. There was a lot of common land in this country. And then they gradually chipped away to remove our rights to travel and common land. And, and now it's got to a state, the Criminal Justice Act days that we were building up to there, they made any more than 6 traveller vehicles kind of illegal. And they could come and give you hassle. And this most recent round of the law, the police crime sentencing and the other one, they've said any more than 2 traveller vehicles can be deemed as an illegal encampment. And that's tyranny when you try and stop a whole nomadic way of life, And for many years we've been standing up for our rights to travel, to protest. The Freedom Network brought together, the travellers, the squatters, the Huntsabs, the road protesters. Twyford Down was a kind of a start. I mean, I met Fluffy and we were squatting an old bank on
this is
on Oxford Street.
So, if you don't mind, I'd like to say how I met him. I was quite new and naive to alternative culture. I was brought up quite a straight young man and went to posh schools, got thrown out of them, went to inner London's comprehensives, then opted out of all of that, started taking LSD, my mind got blown. I realised there was a whole alternative world out there, and I heard that people had squatted a massive bank on the corner of Oxford Street and Park Lane in the heart of London. And it was like, how can people legally take a building? I was fascinated. I read about it in a newspaper, I think. So I went along and I met this young man, and him and a crazy older man had the bank was empty. They'd used the rights. Squatters had rights under Section
6, Criminal Law Act 1977.
You can occupy a building, and if you occupy it and there's no criminal damage, there's not a police matter. It becomes a civil matter, and you are in legal occupation of this building. Phoenix understood this law and didn't just do little bits. He was like, well, let's take a fucking bank, and did. I turned up there going, oh my God, this is the most amazing, cool, lawless, empowering thing I've ever experienced. Went off, got my little crew of acid-taking freaks that I was, and we went back and painted up the walls and never looked back. And they
came in and said, can we do some graffiti on the walls? And the cafe said, we've got big blank white walls, come on in, crack on. And they wanted to help out with the cafe, this, that and the other. It was a bank on the corner of Oxford Street. We took it in the middle of the afternoon, broad daylight, just dressed up with like workers' overalls, yellow jackets, got out of the back of a van, jacked up the front of the door with a scaffold pole and a car jack, and managed to swing the door open. Got in there, squatted it. It's a bit of a long story. We got thrown out, arrested, and then we came out again and squatted again a week later because the guy was like, they're illegally evicted, they shouldn't have done that. I was still quite young at the time. I squatted for 3 or 4 years just as survival. Squatting for many people is just getting a roof over your head for so many years till you get other things together, and it's a survival net for so many people, and it's actually using some of the million empty buildings that are out there in the UK. Absolutely. That should be used, and there's still over 1 million empty buildings. But after a few years, I worked out that actually you can squat these massive buildings and you could do community centres. So we started this kind of Rainbow Centre Community Project squatting.
One World Rainbow Centre.
Thank you for the full name. The One World Rainbow Centre. We are all one world. We're all one people, one family, one tribe getting together. Human beings. We all want shelter, food, whatever it is. And you know, so we started squatting these big buildings. We tried a big department store in Richmond, got chucked out of there. We squatted at McDonald's. You know, got that in the news. Then we squatted the BCCI bank. And, you know, we raised awareness as we're going on, saying these are environmental community centre squats, and we got them in the news. That's one thing squatting's good for, is when you take a big, iconic building, and we've done a few over the years, and we've had a lot of fun. I'm a bit of an adrenaline addict. My dad was in the Marines, my mum was a nurse. We like energy and action and looking after people. So for the next kind of 25 years, we squatted all sorts of big buildings and set up community centres, environment centres. It was always environmental community centres with a list of 20 things you can do: talks, workshops, cinema, kids area,
cafe,
self-employed market, cafe, dance classes, workshops, bike repair, computer repair, whatever is in all these different buildings.
And in the areas, whenever we opened these community centres, the community came and used them and relished them, and the community in the area benefited immensely. And then when we would get evicted, which was always generally at some point, the powers that be would either go through the court proceedings or illegally evict you, but you would get moved on. And those communities suffered because suddenly they have no places where they can go and
yeah. We created community wherever you went. You know, you create family wherever you go. And you look after people. Like Susanna, tribal grandmother, used to say, we are the safety net under the safety net. When people had to run away from domestic violence or lost their home, they'd come to the squats. And quite often we'd say, look, we've taken a big place, we've got some rooms, come and join us. And we get them involved. I mean, you know, from around the BCCI bank time and the other centres, Twyford Down and the road protest started kicking off. I saw in this free information newsletter, which is the way people communicate before the internet, they had something called a newsletter and something else called a telephone box, and people would tell each other where these gigs were and where the gatherings. So I went down to Twyford Down, and Fluffy and a load of mates come down as well, and we started with Colin over here jumping on bulldozers and going and pixieing them, which is being naughty in the middle of the night to make sure they don't work in the morning, stop them chopping down the trees or whatever. And that kind of Twyford Down led into a whole, just to spiel a little bit here, for the road protest movement, and some of what we cover with the resistance exhibition kind of starts with the Greenham Common women. Big up the Greenham Common women. Yeah. Hey, they actually stopped the nuclear missiles 20 years later from being brought into Greenham Common, brought in a big strategic arms limitation talks. Things happened because of that. Some of the songs we sang at Twyford Down were for the Greenham Common women, the Free Festival movement. Twyford Down led on to all these different road protests, and all of these things were just a few people camped round a fire with benders or yurts or teepees or whatever they find, trucks and buses and caravans. And it just started with a few dedicated people around a fire willing to stay there and be sheer bloody minded, non-violent direct action, jumping on diggers. Twyford Down led on to big ones like the M11, Salisbury Hill, Newbury. You probably saw on the news if you're old enough, Swampy and Newbury. And maybe we should tell them about Salisbury Hill. There was the beginning of new tactics. Things like tunnels started with, they buried a fucking filing cabinet in the ground, and that was the first tunnel, and then buried it over a bit, and then tree houses. Tell them about Salisbury Hill.
Well, at Salisbury Hill, since maybe even the early 70s, the Earth First movement, American activists were going out into the wilderness where the big trees were being taken down for lumber, and they were individually, sometimes just 2 or 3 people would get up into these very tall trees and live in the trees in hammocks and maybe build platforms. So when we started doing this in England at Salisbury Hill, where there was lots of trees, we were just doing individual trees. And then a climber came along and showed us that you can actually join trees together with a very cheap piece of polypropylene rope and then put another one 4 foot above it and create walkways. So one person could then technically look after a bunch of trees. This revolutionised road protest and tree defence, and a tree village in a place called Whitecroft, halfway up Salisbury Hill, the first tree village in the United Kingdom, possibly in in the world was made. We had a pirate radio station up there. There was all kinds of things. It was an awesome time. And then when they came to evict, they didn't know how to do it. So initially, they came in and they actually tried to put tyres underneath the trees and set fire to the tyres.
While Caroline was up in the trees, he had a big smoke.
And smoke us out. That didn't have much effect. Well, it did, but we persevered. So then they decided to send the army in, create a news embargo, so they refused the press to come in, sent army climbers up the trees, and basically cut us out the trees. And the gentleman, and this is the first treetop battle. It was a full-blown battle, non-violent from our part, but it was a full-on battle of bravery on our parts, of just grim determination of, like, if I leave this tree, they're going to cut the tree down, so I am not going to leave the tree. They came in with climbers, they came in with cherry pickers, and in the end, there was no way of getting away from them. They literally dragged you out the tree, sometimes just by the back of your trousers, and suddenly you're dangling 40 foot above the ground outside a crane. That Martin, who was the climber that taught us how to make the walkways and join the tree together, was actually cut out the tree and fell maybe 60 foot and broke his back. And heroically, actually, Martin not only survived the broken back, about 6 months later, he's back up another tree at Stanworth Valley on the M65 campaign.
Hey, go on, Martin.
Yeah, big love to Martin, wherever he is now.
Big up all the Ewoks and the tree protesters out there, all the people who climbed those trees over years. The people still doing it. Just a little bit of that story there that's got to come out. And, you know, you hear new bits of it every time it comes. But I didn't know some of those bits. But so, you know, there was a thing back in the 90s, fluffies and spikies, and they didn't always like the exact, you know, divisions, but like basically there was non-violent, it was more fluffy, and spiky was willing to fight back. And
if the police hit you, you hit them back. There was an attitude of that.
Self-defense. Every human being has a right to self-defense. But like, so basically, Fluffy had his name earlier, you know, from I think the Offshore State Circus called him Fluffy, like the clown Fluffy. And then basically the security at Salisbury were beating up the protesters really, really badly and dragging people around, and people started shouting, "Oi, keep it fluffy! Oi, keep it fluffy!" Just to kind of bit of comedy, and then it became a phrase to keep things fluffy, to keep it non-violent.
Yeah, so because for me, the resistance, of course there's armed resistance and all kinds of deep conversations like that, but from my point of view, I'm an absolute advocate of non-violent direct action, and I have experienced, as Phoenix is an amazing example of the power of non-violent direct action. We do not have to resort to violence. In fact, in confrontational situations, when you don't confront them back with violence, often that is unbelievable power. People, and I've personally experienced
that's a good point to say a few bits there. That, you know, the victories that we've had. You know, non-violent direct action comes from a lot of different schools, a lot of it from Gandhi's kicking out the British Empire with, you know, non-violent campaigning, to Martin Luther King and the, you know, the American South and dealing with the Jim Crow laws and the things like that. But, you know, so many victories have come through non-violent direct action, and there's many different tactics and strategies and ways of doing things, you know, explore all different kind of things. But, you know, the Greenham Common women did non-violent direct action, blocking up the gates, rocking the nurse I just saw in first aid, she used to be at Greenham, rocking the fences down, taking them down, you know. And I suppose the Dongers tribe at Twyford Down, who started us off on jumping bulldozers, big up Colin and all the Dongers, posse out there, started jumping on bulldozers, doing non-violent direct action. That meant that the protesters didn't hit back and they were non-violent, and sometimes people did get angry and things went off, but like quite often the security were very violent to people and things had gone on. But people maintaining non-violence actually kept pushing back. The road protest grew so massive. We squatted this big church, the Rainbow Centre. Many people came. We had, you know, 40, 50 people staying at a time, and about 20 vehicles parked down around outside. People went off to Newbury and to Salisbury Hill and to Norfolk and to Stanworth Valley and up to Scotland, anywhere they were destroying trees. And in the end, after however many years, particularly Newbury broke the back of the government, they had a £26 billion road building programme, and they cut it down to something like £8 billion. So 2/3 of all those beautiful forests and sites of scientific interest were saved by those people jumping on those bulldozers and doing things. So Hey, go on, big up the tree protesters, big up the road protesters. I want to steam us forward a little bit in time here, because I don't know where our timeline's going, but the road protests led on to things like Reclaim the Streets, came out of the Rainbow Centre, the big squatty church we had, came out of M11 protests, an amazing place called Claremont Road, whole big long street squatted. Eventually, when they came to evict it, was like 300-400 people up on the roof. They had to come in with about 900 police, and it was a massive, great big...
Yeah, I was going to say, it was a street in London. We joined all the houses together, knocked through, barricaded all the houses. We also, the cherry pickers they bring in, they can extend the ladder to 110 foot. So we built a scaff tower on a roof of a house 120 foot. So they couldn't reach it. And again, we had a radio station on that. Yeah.
And the best, one of the nice bits there, really. So as they came in with about, 800 police all lined up to try and get these 300-400 people off the roof, and bailiffs and cherry pickers. I mean, at one point everyone's like, like that bit with Star Wars, was it? Da, 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 da. And then as they come in, and then somebody on this sound system on the top of this, the big tower called Dolly, after the old 96-year-old who was there, who refused to leave her house. She said, Adolf Hitler didn't kick me out of my house. I'll be fucked if the Department of Transport's going to do it.
And I was born in this house and I'll die in this house.
Yeah. So basically they played The Prodigy as the police were coming in. What we have here is a total lack of respect for the law. Boom, 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 boom. But everyone on the roofs went mental. Took them 3 days to get everyone down, and it was a bit of a mad story. But all of these protests went on. There used to be a street party, Claremont Road, every Sunday. And loads of people, we blocked either end of the road with and then sculptures and chessboards and sofas and artwork, and every Sunday there'd be a chill out kind of street party. People would come from other squat parties all over London and come and chill out there. And then when Claremont was evicted, we had a meeting at the Rainbow Centre, the big squat church, and we went out and did Camden High Street. Just appeared, some people out the tube, couple of old cars were driven into each other. I'm laughing because I found out just recently who was driving some of the cars. They're around here. And basically, they drove 2 cars into each other, 5 mile an hour, blocked the high street, created a kids area, sand. Everyone in Camden wanted to come out to the road and have a street party. Camden Council is now talking about pedestrianising that. Just to steam it a bit forward, it went on to other street parties. It went to Islington. The KLF lot are here somewhere. Brought a sound system tank in on an armoured car, playing What a Wonderful World. A few thousand people on Islington High Street having it. Pedestrianised, a space for community, not a space for pollution, and everyone individualised in their cars.
I've got a lovely memory of the Reclaim the Streets that took, was it the M40?
M41, we've got to tell that one.
So we squatted a whole junction of a motorway, sound systems on there, and the beautiful thing was these amazing stilted characters, big, like the lady out there earlier, on stilts, but they had a big crinoline dress. They're there all day, just in their crinoline dress, walking around. When they left, underneath the crinoline dress were people with drills that drilled the roads and planted trees. So at the end of the day, as we went, there were trees in the motorway. That's this little thing like originality, non-violent, direct action.
Those non-violent direct action. And that's 2 of my favourite stories. So just the other bit to that is, Reclaim the Streets took things from the situationists who were like 1968 and before. Create a situation, create a spectacle, and that went round the world. So towards the end of that M41 street party, my mate, who should not be named, but he came up, did a lot of sound systems and stuff. He said, here, come and have a listen to this gabba. And I went, I'm not a fan of gabba, it's really banging. He went, no. It's like boom, 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 boom. It's like, that is fucking noisy. And he went, no, come and have a look. And he lifted up the crinoline ball gun thing, and underneath there's about 4 or 5 geezers from the M11 with a jackhammer, jacking, the road, planting the trees. Beautiful, beautiful. And when it left, that went all round the world. Yeah. British road protesters dig up the motorway, plant trees, forests for the future, whatever it was. The other end of it, at the beginning, they were driving in onto the M41, and they had a big curtain-sided lorry with like 20k sound system or whatever, and there was supposed to be 3 or 4 tripods, which are like big metal scaffold poles in a tripod. Somebody climbs up to the top and the police or a vehicle can't get past. 3 out of 4 deployed. They didn't totally block the motorway. Police vans steamed up, caught up with the sound system truck, and our mate said, so they just grabbed the 5 of us in the truck, and there's about 6 or 8 police, nicked us with their handcuffed, and then the rest of us had got on the tube and run round. The police shut an entire tube station, whichever one it was. We got off at Shepherd's Bush, the next one. some of us knew where we were going with these green wristbands or whatever. And we took a crowd of about 3,000 people round the back up onto the M41 motorway. And we started running through this line of about 30 police, ran down the motorway. And my other mate said, that was one of the most happiest bits of my life, he said, because I was nicked there by this 20k sound system and said, fuck, that's it, the party's off. And he looked up the road, 3,000 people running towards him. And a policeman who had him in handcuffs just went, oh, fuck. And just undid the handcuffs and let them go and go on, get on with it. So they knew in 2 minutes to be engulfed. But, you know, never doubt that a small group of people can change the world, you know, from Twyford down. A few people doing that to a few people planning a street party and getting their sound
and how Reclaim the Streets went from a group of freaks in London having a go in Camden Town, and it became a global movement. They Reclaim the Streets all over the world, copying that. As the same with the Extinction Rebellion, with the Red Brigade, things like this. Iconic things that then people come up with. A dear friend of ours, Doug, came up with the idea. If you've seen with the Extinction Rebellion, the iconic figures in red with the white faces. Our friend Doug came up with that as he's a clown and a theatre man, and he took that, and that then became something that anybody could do anywhere, and people have, and there are red brigades all over the world representing the resistance and supporting the environment.
So just like, you know, Reclaim the Streets is actually a tactic, a strategy, a tactic that anyone can do. If you go to rts.gn.apc.org, there's 10 steps to setting up a street party. Get a group of mates together, you know, scout for a place and a location, create some flyers, put posters all over town for 2 months, and do your best to bring other stuff to make it an exciting street party. And it's about reclaiming space. Just to say a little bit more, you know, like Fluff was saying, it went from London, you know, Camden to Islington to Brighton, to start to spread around the country to Sheffield, to Manchester, to Bristol did one, spread all over the UK, started hopping around the world. To Sweden did one, San Francisco did one, Genoa, Milan, Italy did one, Australia. It went global, all over the world. Reclaim the streets and houses, you know, reclaim the future. You know, on from Reclaim the Streets, it was an incredible movement. There was something called People's Global Action, and the internet had just started appearing, and we went on basically to link up groups like, this is like 96, 97, 98, groups like the Zapatistas. We started emailing and linking up with the Indian Peasant Farmers Movement. There was a big conference in Zurich, set this thing up called People's Global Action. A lot of the Reclaim the Streets RTS lot got involved, and it turned into a massive global movement where, when there was international summits like Seattle, Genoa or Prague, there would be a few thousand Indian peasant farmers set off in a convoy to come to Davos or wherever it was in Europe. Seattle was the first really big one. We got very, very organised. Lots of different, you know, protest movements got together in Seattle. Some of our lot went over. And they blocked 20 different intersections so that the World Trade Organization, a totally unelected body that makes up all these laws about trade, that was, you know, affecting people badly in lots of parts of the world, was completely blockaded in. They couldn't even get in there. And Seattle was a big victory. The police CS gassed people and battered people, but we held all the different junctions, and the WTO nearly collapsed at that point because people were questioning, you know, why it was happening and this, that and the other. Went on to other ones like Seattle, Genoa, Prague, IMF, World Bank. The World Bank's doing some terrible things to a lot of communities around the world. Big protests, lots of, you know, some of them turned into big riots. There was non-violent routes and parts. There was ones where people were kicking off back with the police. Police brought in Prague, armoured personnel carriers onto bridges. Very brave people going up and tagging them and trying to throw stuff at armoured personnel carriers. Doesn't quite get through the armour. But, you know, lots of tactics and things over the years. And it's really important to see the waves of these movements. So from People's Global Action and those things, it got really, really big. So just to say a little bit there, it went, the Genoa one, Seattle, Genoa, Prague, Genoa. Genoa, there was 250,000 people on the streets. Going to say that again, 250,000 people on the streets of Genoa. And, you know, it got really, really, really big. The authorities started getting really, really, really worried. They actually ran over and killed one of the protesters, or the Italian police was shooting at them. And about 3 months later, after Genoa and 250,000 people on the streets, they were going in and, you know, trashing town halls and banks. And, you know, there was black bloc as well as those, you know, which more violent and non-violent or self-defence. And About 3 months later, 9/11 happened and a massive war brewed up. But the day we were there, we were on a arms trade demo at Dicey, and a mate in a wheelchair, Greg Sams, came over and said, the BBC said 2 planes just flown into the World Trade Center. The first thing that went through my head was, these arms dealers are going to make billions out of these wars that are coming. And it's just really fucking weird that, you know, we had a massive movement of 250,000 people, then you've got a massive war, and then all these arms dealers. So there was a big anti-war movement. 2 million people marched against those illegal wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And basically, it's good that you march. You should march. You should sign petitions. You can vote if you're privileged enough to have an address and a vote and whatever it is. But non-violent direct action gets results. 2 million marched against the illegal wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they still bombed people. 8 people went out from Bristol in 2 cars with 4 D-locks, and our lot didn't manage to find them that night, but another group went out and they managed to stop the bombing in Iraq for 1 night because one car slowed down in front of this bomb convoy that was going to deliver to RAF, wherever it was, and another car behind. People jumped out, got D-locks out, like a bicycle D-lock, and just D-locked to the front and back trucks. And it stopped the whole convoy, got them delayed for enough hours they didn't load in time to bomb. That's a few thousand men, women and children that get bombed limb from limb so that we can invade another country illegally for oil. So, 8 people makes a lot of difference. Keep marching for Palestine, keep marching for all these places, but get out there and take direct action in the middle of the night or whatever you can do in whatever way you can, because they've changed a lot of laws to make it harder, but you can still go out in the middle of the night and do what you like. There's a lot of things there. The anti-war movement then, come next door, we do this resistance exhibition, charting kind of 40 years of protest movements, a lot of photos and video in there of it. On from the anti-war movement, there was a big thing called climate camps kind of came around, which was climate justice movement and occupying bits of land with, lots of activists getting together and doing that. Around that time, we also occupied Parliament Square against the illegal wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. For about 4.5, 5 months, we got it in all the media. Every time we got interviewed on media, we said we've occupied here for the illegal wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. We took it all the way to the High Court, and we nearly won it. We got an expert in the laws of war who briefs the House of Lords, and he says these wars are illegal. It's legal to fight a war of defence when you're attacked, but if you invade another country, it is illegal if you attack and invade another country. And we had this expert in the dock at the High Court because we'd occupied Parliament Square, and the judge said to him, are you actually a professor in the laws of war? He said, have you got a degree? And he said, no, I haven't got a degree, but I've been briefing the House of Lords for the last 15 years on the international laws of war. I think that qualifies me to speak about the international laws of war. Judge said, no, if you haven't got a degree in it, I'm not going to take your evidence. So I stormed out at that point and went, fuck it. Keep taking direct action. On from there, we went to Copenhagen Climate Summit. Big protest, lots of people all over the world came. You remember coming to that one with a bit hectic on the landing night with Naomi Klein, and then helicopters going off dropping CS gas, and it all went a bit mental. But basically, Copenhagen, activist groups, NGO groups and indigenous groups all call for people's assemblies to happen all over the world because our governments are not really representing the will of their people. They're only representing large corporations. And basically, they said we need people's assemblies. After we got evicted from what we called the People's Assembly of Parliament Square, because we come back from Copenhagen and did that, it was nicknamed by the media Democracy Village. But basically, we kept networking, set up people's assemblies wherever you are. About a year later, there was the Arab Spring, then there was the 15M movement in Spain, and then there was the Occupy movement. And so we're coming closer in time. That's about 2010, 11, 12. Basically, we're on the steps of St. Paul's, and it was occupied by the London Stock Exchange. And we're there, and there's like 4,000 people on the steps. And it's the first day, and there's this BBC journalist next to me talking to camera. He said, today, over 900 cities are occupied. And when he finished talking, I said, mate, did I hear you right? Did you say 900 cities? And he said, yeah, 900 cities. That's the information from the BBC. And we could scarcely believe in the days of Reclaim the Streets that we could have 900 cities going on. At the peak of Occupy, 2,000 cities were occupied, having horizontal people's community assemblies, discussing what kind of futures they want. And they were heavily suppressed in America and over here, infiltrated, fucked up by the government. Don't let anyone tell you Occupy was a failure. We won because we had 2,000 cities doing direct democracy, people's assemblies, training loads of people up. And even the governor of the Bank of England said we were right afterwards, because they'd given us austerity when they'd given all these bankers massive bonuses, and we should, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be putting it back into welfare, not warfare, and the rest. So Occupy was major. And then coming on after that, we had a lot of groups got involved with anti-fracking. Just quickly, because I know we're probably on timelining. We won the anti-fracking. 3 or 4 years of fucking hardcore people. Big up the anti-fracking nanas. Let's hear some noise for the grandmas. Hey. They and lots of people of all ages occupied camps outside the gates of the fracking sites 3 or 4 fucking years. Got beaten up, dragged round. Eventually the government said we're going to stop fracking. Direct action gets results.
Just on that, because I've experienced just the power of non-violent direct action loads, and one of the things that really touched me was, I'm in Bristol, when, and I know the lady quite well who instigated it, and she was actually on stage here at Shindig a couple of years ago talking about it, pulled the Colston statue down. You know about that? And the ripples of that, the ripples of pulling down this statue of a slaver and what that represented, and how that then rippled around the world and then created, that's the one brilliant thing with internet and mass social media now.
Absolutely.
How, when in the past when we started doing this, if you didn't do it in London or in places that people knew, the momentum wouldn't necessarily get felt. But now with the power of social media, it's
the
incredible.
butterfly's wings as an expression. For a butterfly to spread its wings over here, it could cause a storm over there. And by some brave people, one of a son of a road protester we know, and 4 or 5 or 6 other people, they came up the other year and said, "We hope you've got the Colston statue in your resistance exhibition." I said, "Yeah, we have. Look there, it's over there." Yeah. You can't cover everything, but there were people pulling down statues in the American South of slavers because they seen what Bristol had done. So big up to Bristol Massive. Yeah. Hey.
Can I just get a time check for where's our stage manager? Just because because I'd like to, obviously this is a conversation that involves all of you as well, guys. So I would love, if you've got questions for Phoenix or myself, we will get to that. We can start getting to that now. But has anyone give me a time check?
Check time, will it?
How long we got? Anyway, all right, well, we'll carry on burbling. If anyone's got a question, now's a good time to hit us up. We'll just carry on this sort of freestyle burbling that we seem to be doing. Thank you all for joining us. Those that have just walked in, this is a conversation with a man, Phoenix. He's spent almost 40 years on the front line of non-violent direct action and resistance, and we're talking about the power of that.
Non-violent direct action gets results. There's some quote from Margaret Mead: "Never doubt that a small group of determined people can change the world." And, for all of these things, from Twyford down to Reclaim Streets, there's, sometimes when you're holding one of these tree protests, there's just like 7, 8, 9, 10 people around a fire coming and going. More people will come for a full moon or whatever it is. When you're planning an action, affinity groups, there's 6, 8, 10 people planning to do these things. So just coming up to the, anti-fracking got a victory. Many, the suffragettes got a victory with non-violent direct action. And also they did blow up letterboxes, and they tried to blow up the Prime Minister's summer house while everyone was out. And they didn't just do, non-violent direct action. They broke a lot of windows, did a lot of stuff. All of these different movements through the years, from the squatters movement to Reclaim the Streets to all, it's a long and honourable tradition.
Which I think is fascinating, because for some reason the British, the English, whatever it is that we call ourselves on this sort of rock that we live on, have this beautiful, rich sort of relationship.
Tradition.
Yeah.
Of disrespect for authority, having fun, taking action. Monty Python humour on the front line. They're trying to victory out these trees, and the withering humour from some of the protesters, you know, like Susanna said, it'd be like 300 security and bailiffs and police and the sheriff and Nottingham or whatever his name, and people would rip the piss out of them with Monty Python lines, knowing that you can't get us down for about 6-8 hours, but when you do, they'll probably give you a kicking, but you can have a laugh at them now. And, you know, all of these things, you know, the British sense of humour to protest. And it was international people from all ages, all walks of life, all cultures. You know, I'm a warrior of the rainbow. It means all races, all cultures getting together to restore the earth to its former beauty. So I want to say a little bit there on some of the latest waves, Extinction Rebellion, and then a little bit about restoring the earth to its former beauty and climate emergency centres. So we're doing an exhibition next door called Resistance Exhibition, 40 Years of Protest and Social Change Movements. That's right next door. Come and have a look. Check the stickers, give us a donation if you can, or help out with some kind words. Extinction Rebellion is kind of one of the latest waves, what I think it was about 7 or 8 waves of the protest movement since we've been involved in the early 90s. And it learned from a lot of previous movements, made a lot of mistakes, made a lot of learnings, brought a lot of people together. It was specifically very strong on non-violent training. I remember them coming and asking us at the Resistance Exhibition, we want you involved. We know you've been doing all this stuff for years. The first action, the bridges action, was incredible. It's very, very ambitious to stop 5 bridges in London. You know, I think it's long enough after the fact to mention certain things without thinking you're going to get done up. But, you know, we helped sort out a lot of the sound systems for the 5 different bridges. And, you know, to see 300 people go onto each bridge with a coordinator, occupy it for so many hours. And it was based on Gandhian, you know, large numbers of people. If it takes them a long time to arrest, it's going to cause a lot of media and awareness about that. And, you know, was very effective in getting a lot of awareness, and we had people's assemblies on the bridges, trying to learn from the Occupy movement. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Each of these movements learn from each other. You know, we learn from the Greenham Common women, from the 50, 60 squatters, whatever it is. The other one, the April Rebellion, was quite incredible, you know, with, again, like the Reclaim Streets, the Situationists, getting a pink fucking boat and whacking it in the middle of Oxford Street. That was a bit mad. A couple of nights before, the police helicopters going over the warehouse where we're painting this boat pink or whatever, and there's a couple of sound system trucks, and I'm like, it went really fucking low, and I went, we're fucked. They've seen that pink boat. There's no way they didn't see that pink boat. But they didn't stop it. And, you know, there was a lot of police liaison with them in the power. I don't know, it's a bit weird. They were like, we're going to do this anyway. Some people went to go and talk to them. You can try and stop us, but we're going to do it anyway. And you can try and facilitate it. But if you're trying to arrest us, we want to be arrested anyway because we're trying to prove this non-violent. A lot of people getting arrested gets awareness on it. So it's all a bit weird, but basically, you know, we got a sound system truck into Marble Arch that went on for days and days and days with speakers and music and massive attack plan, and then pink boat was there for days and days and days. Waterloo Bridge, you know, big up all the people who donated their sound systems, this, that and the other. The pink boat was, again, iconic. It went all around the world. Our mate, world's tallest DJ, leant over on about day 4 and he said, Phoenix, how the fuck are we still here? I'm DJing in a pink boat in the middle of Oxford Circus. I said, 3 words, lock on tubes. There was all these people with arm lock-ons underneath, locked onto the boat. Police made a lot of tactical mistakes trying to come and arrest it in the middle of rush hour. So they didn't know who were the shoppers and who were the protesters, and people were getting nicked going, hold on, I just come here from Holland. I just want to buy some shoes, mate. I'm not a protester. And, you know, we got reinforcements to all the key points. We tried to get a system in the communication so we knew which way the police were coming. When there's 10 vans that were coming for Waterloo Bridge near there, or Oxford Circus, and then we got more devices to protect ourselves there and to get the Samba band and other people coming in to reinforce. It was one of the most strategic, incredible things I've been part of, and many brave people getting involved. And that April Rebellion, you know, was part of the original plan, was 4 different locations for about 4 days. We made it last 11 days with tactics and strategy and sheer bloody mindedness to carry on and to keep going. And it lasted 11 days. It went around the world. In fact, my mate Puffin from the Old Road Protest said to me a bit later on the festival, he said, I saw this 3 a.m. in the morning, and the chief of police said if it had gone on for another 2 days, the police would have collapsed. It was like 13 days. They couldn't keep it up. They were getting bad backs from all the people they're trying to arrest. All these things going on. Non-violent direct action gets results. There's a lot of things on, Extinction Rebellion got a lot of people involved. There was a lot of learnings, like I say, a lot of mistakes, a lot of internal issues and this, that and the other. But it got results. It spread around the world, the power of the internet. There were, XR groups setting up all over the world, and taking action, and groups still going on. There's been a lot of other incarnations since then, and a lot of brave people and younger generation getting involved. Just want to tell you about one of the latest projects. We've been running squatted eco community centres for 25 years. We've been doing it legally for about 7 years. And we get empty buildings, we turn them into these climate emergency centres. I run a charity, and we, help groups all around the country.
How many climate emergency centres are there now?
So there's 32 autonomous centres all over the UK. If you have a look at climateemergencycentre.co.uk, basically, I wrote a handbook during lockdown because, they wouldn't let us out so much. So I sat down and thought, I better put 35 years of running community centres knowledge into a handbook. It's all there free on the website, climateemergencycentre.co.uk. And there's a recipe in there. If you set up as a charity or a not-for-profit or a co-op that's not-for-profit, you save money on the business rates for the owners. You get to use a big building on a meanwhile lease for a year or two.
It's an all-win situation. There are empty buildings everywhere. This handbook tells you how to communicate. This is beyond squatting. This is taking it to the owners of these empty buildings, making them realise, because money talks to these people, these property developers, you make them realise they can save money on their business rates by having community projects in there. They give you the buildings, the community gets to use them. It's an all-win situation.
Yeah, it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the owners. They save 100% of the business rates. So it's a win for the council because they get to say they're doing something on the climate emergency. There's good people within councils everywhere, but we know it's very challenging with the austerity and all the rest. And it's a win for the local community because they get talks, workshops, cinema, music, parties, events, band rehearsal, bike repair, computer repair, tango classes, tai chi, whatever it is they want to do in those empty buildings. So, 300 councils declared a climate emergency because we got it on the news blocking up central London for 11 days. But then they didn't know, they haven't got that much funds what to do. So we come up with a recipe. You get this empty building. You get a group of friends together, 6, 8, 10. You get a little working group together. You find an empty building. What's the one thing all of our communities can see? Empty buildings. They're a wasted resource, 1 million empty buildings. No one needs to be homeless. None of these buildings should be wasted. They should be used for art, culture, creativity, music, the environment. And, there's now 32 of these autonomous centres all around the UK, from Lewis and Seaford down near Brighton all the way up to Preston and Leeds, across to Carmarthen, across to Norfolk. Even Norfolk County Council have given their massive old headquarters to Norwich Unity Hub. The idea is you create an alliance of groups that use this empty building. It's not just about one group or one building. It's about the intelligent reuse of the vacant property infrastructure in all of our towns and cities, so that you get one of these buildings, you get an alliance of groups, whatever that is, the community group, the environment group, the social group. It's not just about climate and environment crisis, it's about the social crisis, getting spaces together that can help people with their heating bills and their situation, and solving these together. They're about creating resilient networks,
community,
and alliance, and community, innit, bruv?
Community is where, this is why we love to come to festivals, because it is out there. We don't necessarily feel or live in community. Some of us might be privileged enough, most of us don't. Festivals are so appealing. You come here, you're with like-minded people, you communicate to strangers, you might even hug a stranger. We are nourished by this stuff. It gives us strength. Community is a major part of resistance.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. He's a really inspiring speaker, isn't he, ladies and gentlemen? That's really cheered me up. That's beautiful. This is what we need. We need communities of resistance, communities of resilience, communities of culture, and we need to be allowed to access all these empty and wasted space and bits of land. 5% of the population in this country owns 75% of the land. And there was, Reclaim the Land protest back in the 90s. We need to have a rebalancing because it's not working. and we need to open up these empty buildings because we're trying to get the data from all these 32 centres. We need a lot of help. Anyone who wants help with any of this, come and see us at the Resistance exhibition afterwards, because those 32 centres have created jobs. They've each had 300, 400, 500 workshops and classes and culture. You know, they're bringing people together who were lonely there. They're sharing stuff with all ages of people. The best quote from the Swindon Community Hub, little old lady, they introduced me at their 2-year birthday. They've had 200,000 people come through in 2 years of an old River Island shop in the middle of Swindon. And when I go for their 2-year birthday, we helped them negotiate the lease on the building. And they introduced me to this 82-year-old something. And she says, oh, hello. She says, when I came to Swindon, I didn't know anybody. And then she said, and you think about the loneliness in our culture, they say it's a big problem now. And then she said, now I'm a volunteer at Swindon Community Hub. She said, I know everybody. And now the smile on her face was just priceless. We don't do this for money. We need a lot of support. So any millionaires in the audience, come see us afterwards. We do this with very, very little. And, you know, that's priceless for an 82-year-old to find family, to find community. And when the shitstorm of these future climate problems come and social problems, if you have a community space and a network of resilient people that helping each other with repair shops, you're looking after your old people. We need to have these spaces to get together, the wisdom of the elders with the energy of the youth, and we all help each other, because there is a much better future possible if we focus on the solutions. There's a lot of talk now about resilience and a lot of people talking about collapse and doom, but I know how fucking bad it is. I know how bad it is than a lot more people, because I've been hearing the bad information for 35 years. But we have the solutions. If you give us the spaces and the funding and the skills and let us use some land in these empty buildings, we will show you the better futures that are packed with solutions. Wind, solar, water, community currencies, sharing, cooperating, festival, culture. You know, we can show solutions to people, and we need the spaces to build them in these climate emergency centres, in buildings and on bits of land. And if we can all cooperate, we can work the solutions for a better future.
Beautifully said, Mr. P. Thank you. I could talk with this man for ages. I'm really conscious that we have to wind it up. We have got a few minutes. Is there any questions? Would anyone like to? Please, sir.
What are your thoughts on the Labour Party, please? Your thoughts on the Labour Party with that?
Yeah, that would be nice. Does that help? I mean, what are the thoughts? Okay, very quickly, we live in a two-party controlled system that's been run for a very long time. Big up all the Labour Party people who came up from the grassroots. They purged it terribly recently. I'm a big fan of what we need to do is set up 100 different cities with people's assemblies, link them up digitally so we can share what we want, because whoever you vote for, they go and do what they want after they've got your vote. And we need a representative democracy, which means power of the people,
the democracy
that links up, and we can see what we're all talking about live or digitally, and then we can make action on it and say to the politicians, this is what we want. XR did a lot of work with people's assemblies. Jamie Kelsey Fry said, Bristol Council said, we want people's assemblies. You're knocking on an open door. We just have to take the power back and set up our own assemblies and link them up. And then all the rest, they will start listening to us, because we're just going to take the power and do it. Vote if you've still got to vote. And you know, there's good people within all these parties. Don't mean to knock anyone. Please, let's all work together and create the assemblies and create another level of democracy, because that's the 19th century, the two-party horse. Does that help?
Oh, the good answer. We could probably take one more question, and then I'm quite keen, before the DJ starts, to show a tiny little video that a very creative friend of ours made. So is there anyone else got a question for the mighty Mr. Phoenix? Well, in that case, I'd first...
Big up Graham and the Velux Collective for this epic video. Epic video. He's doing some stuff tonight between 9 and 12 on the Resistance exhibition. We've laboured hard to create 2 projection screens there. So walk past on the way to Nautilicious and stop and check some. Big up Graham.
Well, just before we big up Graham and the lovely little short film he made, I'd just like to big up Phoenix for what he said and what he's done here, but also massive respect and love for your years and years of commitment to making a better world for us and our children. So if it wasn't for people like him, the world would be much more of a duller place. We still have a sense of freedom because of people like him. So thank you, Mr. P.
You know, I've just got to say the most recent laws they put in to limit protest need repealing. And if anyone's got the ear of Labour or any of the others, they shouldn't be doing the Tories' work for them and continuing to make protests that's seriously noisy, disruptive, illegal. Protest is supposed to be noisy and disruptive, and they should repeal the laws that make it any more than 2 traveller vehicles illegal. That is fucking tyranny. We fought a war against people who, you know, did that kind of thing. And what it was is shipping people to fucking Rwanda to camps. Didn't we fight a war against that as well? So stand up for your freedom, repeal those laws, and let's have, you know, community assemblies, sharing wherever we can.
Love your work, Mr. P. Thank you. This has been a pleasure and an honour. Do you want to push play on there and we can end it on this lovely little video? Thank you, guys. You've been a lovely audience. Thank you for taking your time to listen to us.
Check this out. Is there volume of it? We got the Doors of Perception and all the psychedelic revolutionaries out there.
Night divides the day.
All the psychedelic showmen.
Try to run, try to hide. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
We got the 68 generation. First Summer of Love. Ashbury, we got Linda, all the Burning Man crew that we work with now on Crime Emergency Centres.
Can you still recall the time we cried? Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
Up all the Greenham Common sisters out there and the brothers out
I found an island in your arms.
together. Big up all the Stonehenge crew and the Free Festival people.
Arms are chainless, eyes aligned. Bring on
Common one.
to the other side. Bring
Move
on
the nuclear
to
missiles.
the other side. Bring on to oh yeah!
Anniversary of the Beanfield this year.
Rain the sea.
Newbury, Twyford, big up all the digger divers, all the pixies, all the people out there hanging out in trees, all the people with their banners, all the people protesting. Big up Dolly, big up all the tree climbers. Big up all the Mutoid Waste crew, all the old travellers, Circus Walk, Viral Time, all the sound system culture. Rebel.
You've been a lovely audience. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. P.
Come and see the Resistance exhibition next door.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Shindig Festival, Cold G on the ones and twos.